Well, Alan, we know that some of those victims are still recovering behind me here at Peace Health Riverbend. Of the 6 shooting victims, 1 is still in critical condition and 5 others are stable. Come 11:59 on Friday, the masks are coming off for good. But you may still see other pandemic precautions sticking around. A body in a cemetery. What's so suspicious about that? Well, here's the catch. The cemetery didn't know anything about it. It was under this tree where deputies discovered a suspicious wooden box Thursday. You can still see the evidence of Friday's shooting here at Wow Hall. This bullet hole, a scar on a historic Eugene building that mirrors the wounds our community will be dealing with for a long time. 5 people stranded in the snow for 22 hours with no service. 1 truck, their key to survival.
We were turning it off and on.
Kendall, Democrats have kept consistent hold of the governor's seat since 1987. But amid the current political landscape, Republicans are optimistic about this year's race. Now, a very scary scene for everyone here, as I'm sure you can imagine. I spoke with a number of people. One woman even witnessed it. She told me she was 30 feet away and she heard someone shout gun before hearing a popping sound, and then people started running. One moment you're walking outside your home with your wife. The next thing you know, the ground falls out from under you and you're 16 feet underground. Frustration, worry, and sadness. Those are the emotions I heard from local veterans today as they react to the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan within days of America's withdrawal. Good morning, Dane. You're right. It's a very special day for Tracktown. It's day 1 of the Olympic trials. And we're here at Hayward Field now, where, as you can see, we have a very big, very beautiful, but right now, very empty stadium. And that's all going to change in just a couple of hours.
Well, Kendall, everyone out here celebrating would probably tell you things feel even better than normal. The Pine Pot has closed off part of the street today for their Celtic Celebration block party. You can hear the cheers right now.
It's a week to celebrate America's teachers and the hard work they do. But this year,
a lot of that work done over a screen.
You can see it's raining on us here in Thurston tonight, but that's not stopping unvaccinated teachers and staff in Springfield School District from rallying today. That's after learning they'll be put on unpaid leave later this month, even if they were granted a religious exemption. Starting Wednesday, the theater experience will look a lot different. You can forget about your mask and those extra few seats between you and your neighbor. And that's what today is all about. Of course, lots of local families impacted by the pandemic and last year's wildfires. So 100% of today's proceeds are going to make sure those kids have opportunities to play sports.
Yeah.
Jacqueline, these 2 investigators are technically just volunteers, but they're both retired police officers with decades of experience investigating violent crimes. And now they're taking a look at 3 unsolved murders that happened here in Eugene. Picture this. You're running late to work when your phone buzzes. It's so tempting to glance down. But this month, law enforcement is reminding you that distracted driving can have deadly consequences. On Monday, this campus will be bustling as students return to in-person classes for the first time in over a year. It's an age-old question. Which part of the chocolate bunny do you eat first? I thought I'd ask an expert. What do you think? Ears? I agree. Here's where the measure's at right now. It passed back on November 3rd. February 1st is when drugs were decriminalized, but funding for recovery centers takes a little bit longer. In April, $20 million in emergency funding was approved by the legislature, and the deadline to apply for that money was this week, May 3rd. Now those proposals are being reviewed, and that early $20 million must be dispersed to service providers by the end of June. And Green Hill needs your help to take care of animals like Argos. We've raised over $20,000 so far today, which is so exciting, but we're only a few $1,000s away from that 25, which is the big number, because once we hit that, we're getting a dollar-for-dollar match, and that's really going to make a difference for these animals.
Absolutely. These animals all just need a happy home, and if that home happens to be Olivia's lap, then so be it. But you know what?
In fall of 2020, Shane Springer's Blue River home burnt to the ground in the Holiday Farm fire. He had plans to rebuild it, but he never got that chance. Following the loss of his home, the 47-year-old was living in a fifth wheel in Vida. Family describe him as an outdoorsy guy who loves to work with his hands.
Very modest, selfless, hard worker. I mean, he's done a lot of projects in the area for various people.
On November 2nd, Shane was doing just that, working as a carpenter on a Mackenzie Bridge home. This is the job site where Shane Springer was working the day of his disappearance. His family says he left and returned here to his home around 10 a.m. He hasn't been seen since.
We don't know what happened to him after he went home at 10 o'clock.
It wasn't until November 5th that a friend reported Shane missing after finding his truck on the 4th. This remote area near Blue River Reservoir is where family and friends found Spranger's truck 2 days after his disappearance.
The initial report to us was that he was thought to be at one of his favorite mushroom picking spots.
But family members who live out of state don't believe he was mushroom hunting the day of his disappearance and instead think he planned to go back to work.
He's a hard worker and he would never, ever leave in the middle of a job to go mushroom hunting.
I stopped by Shane's home, the last place he was seen. Through a family friend, Shane's wife declined to speak with us, saying she's still mourning his disappearance. Investigators tracked cell phone activity, eyewitness accounts, and performed canine searches near where Shane's truck was found. But Speldrich says the terrain made searches difficult, and ultimately,
they didn't find where he was at or where he is at.
Now, after 3 months, the chances of finding Shane alive are dwindling.
If he's in the area in the woods, we would be looking more towards, finding a recovery type of operation.
Do investigators suspect foul play at all?
We have no evidence at this point to suggest that there's foul play. Certainly there's speculation in the community.
Shane's family shares that speculation.
Somebody knows something about where he is, and we just want them to come forward so that we can bring him home.
They're offering a $50,000 reward for information on his whereabouts.
First and foremost, to find him, to know where he is, what happened, then who's responsible, and he deserves justice and his family deserves answers.
Reporting in Blue River, I'm Olivia Young. These water bottles might be the only source of water in Mapleton for days. The town has run out of water, and it's not the first time they've had an issue with their water. Now residents are asking why.
I never drink the water in Mapleton. Why? Because I don't trust it.
Mapleton residents thirsty for answers after months of boiling water last year and reports of abnormally high bills earlier this year.
As a matter of fact, I'm carrying mine right now because I was going to walk down there and see if they can explain it to me because it doesn't make sense.
It's been a big learning curve for all of us, and we're kind of learning from it.
We first met Vanessa West when she was speaking out about those high bills. Now she's secured a seat on the water board herself.
We are pretty much out of water.
Just in time for the latest issue, a complete water outage.
All the leaves and sticks that just got washed down from all of our lovely maple trees here in Mapleton have came down and plugged our filtration system.
West says the water treatment plant is completely down. While the district tries to clean it out, they've hired a company to install a backup filtration system that should bring water back to Mapleton Thursday.
So we may have water off and on for the next couple days, but no guarantees.
If it's short term, not so bad, but a couple of days, I don't like that.
Until then, residents will have to rely on bottled water from Lane County Emergency Services.
Today's going to be mostly door to door because of the limited amount we have.
And if water is still dripping from the tap, residents will need to boil it until further notice and conserve it because right now every drop is precious.
When the water does come back on, if we do get a little bit, conserve, at least until a minimum of Thursday.
Reporting in Mapleton, I'm Olivia Young. I was there as those who lived through this fire remembered it.
It seems like it was just yesterday, but it also feels like it was a lifetime ago.
It's a night Mackenzie residents will never forget.
It was scary, it was dark and there was fire everywhere and ash and trees falling. And driving through it was pretty crazy.
Fleeing the fast-spreading Holiday Farm fire a year ago. When the smoke cleared, hundreds of homes destroyed.
Going down the river and see a chimney here or a burnt-out car there, where there used to be like a beautiful home.
And what was left standing forever changed.
It's overwhelming. Absolutely overwhelming.
1 year later, the community is still recovering. This Orchid Temporary Clinic is still a primary source of health care after the Mackenzie River Medical Clinic burned down in that fire. Monday night, that clinic healing deeper wounds. Those who lost everything staging there before Procession West on 126.
We need to do something. We need to do something to commemorate the fire.
Cars starting their engines at 8:30 p.m., the same time the Holiday Farm fire started, and retracing their steps on that emotional drive 1 year ago.
I spent about 20 minutes this morning just bawling. Because it hit me and I didn't realize it was going to hit me that hard.
Melanie Stanley lost both her home and business in that fire. Like many others, she's still healing, recently securing permits to begin rebuilding.
There's still so much damage and so much recovery that needs to happen that I just don't want people to forget that.
It's an uphill battle for everybody, and it's not over yet.
A community coming together to remember the fire.
We're still all have that same togetherness that we had, week 2, week 3.
And rise from the ashes stronger.
You go down the river and you see sunflowers and you see flowers everywhere and you see green everywhere. So, there's life coming back.
Now, the rebuilding process is a long one. Many, like Melanie, have not yet broken ground, and others have decided not to rebuild or don't have the resources to do so. But that community is Mackenzie strong, and I've seen their determination to recover this past year. They're hoping this next year will bring more healing and regrowth upriver.